Hi, fellow human beings in the ether. Happy 2025. Happy 2025. We're here now. It's very exciting. I have a little something stuck in my throat that I didn't realize prior to filming. So let's set the scene. Let's set the scene for the amp. Set the scene for the amp. The amp. Authentic Mastery Production. Okay. It is January 1st, 2025. Cheers. I am sitting at my home in a computer chair. I'm a little chilly, I'm not gonna lie. This I'm so sorry. You know what? This has milk in it. This does not have milk in it. And you know when like dairy makes you like phlegmy? It's so funny, right? Why don't I just stop the camera? You know what being phlegmy does though? Being phlegmy reminds you to breathe. So if I feel like I'm getting phlegmy, it might be a good opportunity to clear the airway. Okay. So anyway, this cardigan I got from this thrift store today. I think it's so fun. And I'm wearing it. Does it match the shirt? In a way, depends. Depends what we mean by match, right? I'm not really interested in exploring that at this time, but maybe in the future. Which is also the now. Crazy. All right. Let me cough one more time, and then hopefully there'll be no more coughing, and we can move forward. I hope there's no more coughing. I get to decide if that's the case, right? I get to decide if there's going to be any more coughing in this video. Because I am the cougher. I am the one who coughs. That's really deep, isn't it? All right, so I also, setting the scene, have my frequencies on. This is the Chi Coil app. This is the only frequencies that I have used with this so far. And I have it like sitting in my waistband, like a god. She's a gun in my holster, you know what I'm saying? So I have her like literally in my waistband right above my abdomen because I have very strong cramps, and I literally purchased this device 4 days like today, where the pressure has changed. There's a different weather system in the now, and I'm just very sensitive. So to have something like an EMF current in my state of awareness, that it adds value. It adds value to me. So yeah, I have a few more days until I decide whether or not I keep it. And I'm gonna do a full video on that. Because I'm in a couple Facebook groups. If you guys are interested, I don't know if people know this, but I feel like I don't know how to use Reddit very well. And Reddit is typically based on anonymity, meaning, what is anonymity? Why must I choose these words, right? Anonymity allows for a what I'm going to call a break in character, right? Who I am online is cloaked in some way from who I am in person, and maybe there's not cross traffic. Whereas Facebook is used by a lot of older people like Reddit, right? They all comment, they reply to each other, they have community-based conversations, but it's linked to who they really are in real life. You know, it's like Lisa Howard. Lisa Howard says blah, 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 blah. And that's the same thing on Facebook in like a community group as like something on Reddit, I think. As something on Reddit that is like Purple Kite 642. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think when you recognize this, you may see a pattern, which is that younger people have a tendency to be more dimensional, right? So it is more fun for younger people to juggle an online and an offline world like this and occasionally toss than it is for them to just be online, offline, online. Like boomers, their online and offline lives are usually pretty well matched, right? Their social presence is going to be fully transparent usually because they're like, this is what social media is used for, to share myself on the internet. And when you grew up in an environment where the internet was blossoming as you were blossoming, right? You were growing as the internet was growing. There was a lot of creativity that came from being online that wasn't possible in an offline space, right? There weren't these, for example, what is something that I did? I used to like jailbreak my phone when I was younger. Like I would learn HTML and jailbreak my phone because I thought it was fun to do. And like, these are things that they don't teach you in school. These are things that like, it took years for them to even create like an HTML class, you know? So there's always going to be frequency experiences of different frequencies in different humans. So older people typically operate at a slower frequency, and younger people, what I mean by saying like juggling multiple dimensions, it's what people call ADHD. It's what people call ADHD, is doing this. But what happens when the juggler is just juggling and they don't know they're juggling? Okay, so they're like, imagine this is just something they do, right? There's balls, there's juggling happening. The balls are moving, the juggling is happening. And then somebody comes up to them and says, oh my God, you're juggling. You're juggling, right? And you juggling, but not knowing that you're juggling by the word identification, go, what the fuck are you talking about, right? Like, I'm juggling. Okay, right? What does that mean? And now you have to have a conversation about what juggling means. And you both leave the conversation with a different perspective of juggling. However, there's something powerful about the labeler to the labelee, right? So if you're just doing something like juggling, for this example, and you're not thinking about what it is that you're doing, you're just doing it, when somebody comes up to you for the first time ever and says to you, oh my gosh, you're juggling, you're like, bro, what? And then you learn a new word and a new meaning, and maybe you start using it for yourself. But then there's a greater context to even that, right? So maybe juggling has a particular flavor, a particular environment in which you do juggling, in a particular environment in which it's valued, right? Maybe somebody who learns that they are juggling, can then apply that in a broader context. But the real question is, I think, is it useful to label something versus just doing it? And what, so there's something that I said, which is that some people are using their voices like pollution. And I say that really kindly, right? To be very, very simple and rudimentary with it, the breath cycle, most people understand what you're taught in school, which is that you breathe in oxygen because your body needs oxygen, you breathe out CO2. There are so many other things that happen there, but yes, that is quantifiably true in the sense that we intake more oxygen and then we exhale more CO2, right? So, and then we hear all these conversations about how carbon dioxide is causing global warming, right? So then if you just link those two things together, you can make the funny claim that people who are saying shit that is making people feel like garbage, it is technically like wafting something that isn't good for us into the environment. Like, I don't think people really understand the power of their words, and they just throw them around willy-nilly. And they don't know that they're like casting, it's like being a witch and you don't know you're casting spells. And then one day someone says, yo, you're a witch. Look at all the spells you cast, right? And you look and you realize everything you say has a particular magical quality that allows for other things to happen, right? Your voice, the words that you say, however you choose to use your vocal cords, that's what I'm going to say. However you choose to use your vocal cords, that's the parameters here that I'm setting, the boundaries, if you will. That energetic transformation should not bring waste and waste alone. If you are going to use your energy to speak, why not speak something intentional, powerful, uplifting, strong, uniting, fun, silly, loving? Why wouldn't we bring that energy to our conversations? And you know, it's the holiday season. So human beings like me who really create an environment of peace and love and grounded self-trust and are working at self-mastery, right? When you have that, and then you have a couple of months where you have to be a little bit more social, you have to dive into a little bit more of a various frequency pool. And for someone like me who's been hibernating for a little bit, who's been kind of like in a cocoon for a little bit before like the butterfly wings come out, right? For that person, this is a little bit nerve-wracking. Like the holidays come around and I feel like I've changed so much from the previous holiday that I'm like scared to almost like shed a new layer of skin in front of human beings that have known me forever, or maybe I just meet. And I have two opportunities there. It's like, how am I reflected in the human beings that already know me? How has that change been reflected in the contrast? And then also in strangers that I just meet, how are my first impressions being reflected back to me? And so coming out of your cage, doing just fine, and attending a holiday party or a family gathering allows you to try on your new self-mastery skills, right? So if you're working on things like this, if you're focusing your attention on things like this, like if you understand that everything really comes from within and higher, not outer or lower, when you are fully embracing that and you're on your way to fully embracing that, you may come to these conclusions. I don't know. You know, I want to talk about something briefly. I know I don't talk about my body much on here, but I do have one, so I suppose we could reference it for a moment. Do you see, like, this experience that happens right here? These two, because, like, this is me looking directly at the light. I know you can't really tell, but, like, what is this? Because, and this is, I'll tell you what I'm scared of, right? Maybe I didn't. I stopped chewing my cheek because I realized I was mutilating and self-harming, right? Whoa, right? Check out my TikTok for a conversation about that. But, so then I noticed, like, in certain light, right, you see, so I'm really big in lighting and how that shapes faces that's just fun for me as a portrait photographer for quite some time. I was like really interested in how the light hits the face. So for me, this light is like up here, right? It's up here. You can see it, cover it, right? So this is the direction that it's in, the distance between, right? So when I look at my face, right, in the camera, because I spent a lot of time doing this. So you just have to get comfortable with yourself and have real conversations with yourself about what you look like. Like, if you don't like what you look like, just fucking look at yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, well, what are we working with here, right? Like, come in as if you're an expert stylist, as if you're gonna make yourself the most beautiful person in the world. And you're like, this is my canvas. What can we do, right? Like, what do we want to do for ourselves, and how long is that gonna take? Do we want to take the cosmetic route where it's quick, it's like easy dopamine, no offense, or you're gonna take the long-term route and you're gonna cleanse? Listen, I've done both, okay? I'm just saying. Okay, so for myself and for the viewer at this moment, hi. So what I'm curious about is what these mean. Like, are these things that I've had, because are they like muscles? Like, what are they? And like, should I get them pierced? Or, so my fear is, right, so this is where my cheek is, and I always like bite right here. So I'm like, I don't know if it's like swollen from something, but is it interesting? Like, why are they there? Like, shouldn't my face like go like this? Shouldn't it keep? It's just a fascinating thing. It really is. I don't know. It's weird. I said this once. I was like, it is times like these where it feels weird to have a body, you know? I am like this close to posting my biggest download of all time because for some reason I'm so vulnerable to share it. Like, that was the moment that I associate with me regressing as a human being. I felt like because I was receiving all of this information and I didn't have a clear channel, meaning like I'm receiving all of this information, but I'm projecting it out onto all these different things because I wasn't a full self in that stage yet. Like, you know, it's like being in a cocoon and then like prematurely becoming a butterfly, and then the butterfly can't fly because it's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't do all the steps. I didn't do all the steps, which is a facet of being a manifesting generator if you are familiar with human design. But also on top of human design is quantum human design, which is 10 times better. And so I suggest you look into that one because it's a little bit more fun and a little more in depth for me. Also look at the gene keys if you're interested in this stuff on top of your astrology chart. A good app is Pattern. I love that one. It's more in depth than CoStar. Time Passages, that's another one. That's good. I check these regularly. Yeah. Okay. What was I talking about? My face. Yeah. So that was just a thing. That was just a thing I was... Oh, and then I said, look in the mirror. Is that what I was talking about? Oh. Oh, my download. Yeah. Yeah, so I associate that. Notice how fear just takes it. I am very vulnerable about sharing that particular download because it's just really raw. It's really real. It was my life. It was my present moment. Like, there was nothing kept from the video. Like, I was so honestly expressive in my vocal cords. So when I what I meant earlier when I said I didn't have a clear channel to receive this download, what that means is the download didn't come in a clear stream. It was fragmented. So essentially there would be personal anecdotes applied, and what happens is you have to translate those personal anecdotes, because when we switch our mode of language, our state of being, for example, like I will switch from metaphor to present language. Typically it goes metaphor, present language, or story. And story is still metaphor, right? So when I started seeing my own experiences as story, I was able to link to metaphor, which then linked me to the now. And now I use present language to make metaphor up, but I will typically process something in another dimension in order to apply it, right? So that way I have optimal time use, right? I'm not going to sit here and do this all day. I'm just going to do it, notice it, fix it, work on it, whatever. If you're annoyed by something, like this is what I said, if you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I don't like what I see, Like, have the courage, like, love yourself. Have the courage to love yourself and look yourself dead in the eyes and be like, okay, what are we working with here? Like, why don't we approach ourselves like that? Why don't we approach ourselves like a full glam team on one of those like amazing Disney movies where it's like, you know, somebody becomes famous overnight and a whole glam team walks in to take care of you, right? You have the whole glam team, okay? The person that walks in, it's like the Princess Diaries, right? The stylist comes in, they're like, oh, you are disgusting, right? I don't actually know if that's happened, but they're like, oh my god, you need to be fixed, right? Now that's not what would happen. Now what would happen is somebody comes in and goes, I love how unique and cool you are. I love that you have this rugged aesthetic, right? There is a way to spin anything these days. And you can make whatever you truly are, whoever you truly are, the story, the point of the story. Okay? So that feeling of like, I'm taken care of. Like, I am going to be okay. That comes, I guess, from this metaphor for me, from a glam team. Okay. Fun story, the way to tell it. But like, for me, it's like all these worries go away. Because for me, it's not that I look in the mirror and think that I'm ugly, right? I don't look at the mirror, I don't look at myself and say, I'm ugly. I don't have these thoughts about my appearance. My thoughts are like, the shape of this part of my face seems to have a different shadow. That's really interesting. I'm wondering what this signifies. And it's curious because our skin is an organ and our body is a very complex, multidimensional, infinite energy structure, like a tensegrity structure with tension and compression elements. So there's something magnificent happening for this part of my skin to look this way, for this part of my face to look this way. Like, it's absolutely incredible. I picture it again like that humanity octopus metaphor, where the tip of the octopus, right, where like this surface area, the surface area of our being, our physical being, is like that point. You know, so think about the surface area of your body. That's like your energy point. It's wild. It's mind-boggling and mind-blowing. But I prefer not to use my mind sometimes. We don't always need to be using our minds. It should be used in collaboration with everything else. Nothing should really ever be used in isolation. Like, why would we be isolating things? And I was just talking to a doctor about this, and that matters that she's a doctor because it adds credibility to the story. Okay, I was talking to a doctor about this, and I was like, everybody is disciplined in a particular expertise now. So there are way less holistic doctors, meaning they look at the whole person, right? They're not going to say, I'm going to look at your kidney and then I'm going to send you to a heart specialist. I'm going to go look at your heart and then I'm going to send you this. So then you're faxing all this paperwork where the doctor never really meets the patient. The doctor never really meets the patient. The doctor never really exchanges authentic human being energy with the patient in the same ways that they used to. You know, if you're going to be cutting me open, brother, we should know each other a little bit better, I think. And you know, it's so funny because ironically, they say it's not safe for people who know, like a parent could not give surgery to their child, right? They say that is unethical, right? Because they would be so irrational, they wouldn't be able to perform the surgery correctly. But what if, like, in reality, all surgery should be like done by people who know you? Because then it's like you're careful and you actually like know what's going on. You know, it's like the idea of just go with me here. I'm pushing the edges of the mind, okay? Let it happen. Let it happen. It's fun. So, it was fun until I had to bring attention to the fact that it was fun. Why did I think you guys weren't going to think it's fun? Girl. I do want to take a second because a couple of people, I got 4 subscribers in one day today, which was pretty awesome. And like, it's so fun to watch that number tick up. It really is. Like, it feels like so cool because this kind of speaks to what I was saying before, but when you are your authentic, like truest authentic self, and people are reflecting that back to you in a way that feels pleasurable and joyous and shows you that you are pleasurable and joyous, that is a good feeling. It just feels like you are literally reverberating energy that gives love because you keep getting it back. You know, like all the love that you get comes from yourself, which is ironic. Isn't it ironic? Right? It's like, oh, how is a baby supposed to love themselves? And it's like, they just are there. They just are there. We tell them what to do. At a certain age, we tell them what to do. Right? They are just existing. And, you know, we all remember in some way, shape, or form what it was like to be a baby because you don't remember it. Right? You want to know why you don't remember it? It's because you were there and there's nothing to remember. The only things you really need to remember were these like deep perceptual sensations that you were experiencing, like deep perceptualities that you were engrossed in and now are like living that imprint out, right? Because imagine this, right? Imagine the skin is a living organ, which it is, right? And it contains information, let's say, and it acts on particular information. You as a baby are like the size of this mug at one point, right? So you have a surface area, a cellular surface area that exponentially increases like for the first 8 years of your life, the critical period, something like that, right? Imagine that if you took anything, you remember those balls that were like spiky, that like, maybe you guys know what I'm talking about. You know, the ones that condense and then they stretch and then they condense and they make it like a circle, right? And then they're spiky. That's what I mean. It's like the amount of information that a baby holds. It's the same DNA, right? You have the same DNA now that you did as a baby, but as a baby, you were this big. So what is the biggest thing? It's size. It really is. It's size. And that's the simplest variable. Like humans grow from a certain size. You are born at a certain size. It'd be really weird if a human was born 4 feet tall. That would be impossible, right? We have parameters. So the idea is that, what is the idea? That's really funny. This is really funny. Okay, so where am I going with this? Because this is fascinating to me. So the simplest variable to explain why anything happens in a linear fashion is pretty fun. It's size, right? It's size. It's your surface area. Okay, let's call it your surface area because again, your skin is an active, evolving organ. And eventually your skin actively evolves and then it starts shriveling and wrinkling, right? The reason why my forehead wrinkles is because it holds information. It holds the memory of the past, right? You could say it that way. So like you can tell where my face has been. You can tell where my face has been because it's been here. Ha ha ha, right? Ha 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 ha. Right? We're seeing that? So if I were to get filler, for example, it wouldn't change the fact that my face has been all those places and it wouldn't tell my cells anything other than, hey, there's some foreign object in me. So if you want to remove the wrinkles from your face, then you should focus on how you form your face. Like if I said to myself, I want to get rid of my wrinkles, and it's like, well, how am I getting wrinkles? I'm getting wrinkles from moving my face. So now you're saying, well, I guess I just shouldn't move my face. That's the way to not get wrinkles. Well, I'd rather just get filler then. You know what I'm saying? There's these silly things that we do as human beings because we want to look a certain way. and this idea that we are growing at an exponential rate. And then for some reason, everybody thinks we just slowed our growth. Like, you know, everybody talks about age and everybody talks about how old they are and the associations with getting old, right? Like your eyesight gives out, you start going deaf, you start having a hunchback, you start getting weaker, you start getting winded. And everybody has a different time in which this is, but it's sad because it doesn't have to be that way, but it's a collective illusion that we've all bought into, that getting old means all of those things. And that is what getting old has meant in the current structures and parameters that we are putting ourselves in, including the limiting beliefs that serve as collective illusions and collective rules and laws that we all operate by because we don't know there's another alternative, because our imaginations have been greatly suppressed and completely squashed, really. And to activate your imagination now has to be something kind of deeply uncomfortable at first, which is like to convince yourself and others that that's the things that you want are impossible. That's what most of us spend our life doing. We spend our life wanting things and then convincing ourselves that they're impossible to achieve. And in doing this, it's like you have this pull in this direction that says, I want to do this. And you have a pull in this direction that says, but it's never going to happen. So therefore, these points can never meet, right? Because they're going opposite directions. So in order for you to actually ever get this, you need to integrate this. So if most of us have spent our lives here, you need to find a way to make it here. Otherwise, these things aren't going to happen. You need to integrate your wanting of something with your limiting belief that says that it's not possible, right? So how do you integrate this duality, which is a question I frequently ask myself? How do I integrate the duality that I want to achieve something, but I do not believe it is possible? This limiting belief, okay? Think on that. Think on that. I want to do this thing. Insert your blank right there. This is what I really want to do. It's over here, right? But it's impossible. It could never happen for me. Why would it be me? Like, there's no way even. Like, oh my God, right? Listen to this, motherfuckers, okay? I was able to convince myself that I could marry Billie Eilish. I'm sitting in my basement apartment, fresh out of the mental hospital, on one antipsychotic medication. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm a psychic. Yeah, I'm a psychic. Whoop. Okay. So I'm saying I'm so excited. I'm like, well, now that I'm a psychic, what do I want to do? I already know everything, right? I already know everything. What's going to happen? So I can just completely trust my intuition and use my heart as my compass. And then I start like fucking crying and shit in front of like art by people who've died because I'm like so tapped in and I have like no grounding at all because I'm like, who's Lana? Lana who? Literally, I'm like, girl, don't worry about it. So I'm like, I'm in this alternative, imaginative play area that I've never had before. And I was like, wow, this is so great. I can create whatever I want. When I realized this, I'm like, I can create whatever I want. This is amazing. It's like Harold's in the Purple Crayon, okay? It's amazing. I can create whatever I want. Until you draw all the sketches and you're like, I'm going to create whatever I want. And then what you ordered isn't what you get, right? You go to McDonald's, you order something, then you drive away, you realize, oh my God, this is not what I got. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. But you have to ask yourself in the moment, well, why are these two things different? Why is the thing that I want something that I don't think is possible? Those are the only reasons why the things that you want are not showing up. Because you have to look at yourself in the mirror, number one, right? You have to really assess what's going on here. What's going on here? Because again, the skin is a living, breathing, evolving aspect of your body, right? All your extremities are as well. Your nails, your hair, whatever. How do we treat them? These cells of our body, okay? That's kind of step one. This is kind of the tea we all should be drinking, you know what I'm saying? And then you think to yourself, what do I want to achieve? What do I want? What do I want to create? What do I want to express? What do I want to share? What do I want to start? What do I want to do? What do I want to blah. You have to understand this, right? Once you say, gosh, I want a new job. Okay. If you don't immediately start creating that experience for yourself, you will say to yourself, yeah, but, here's some negative things about myself, right? Blah, 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 blah. Beep, we're going to beep it out for your viewing pleasure. So why are you keeping yourself? That's the integration. That's the question. In order to achieve this, right? Because I will do the fun visual again. If part of you is going this way and part of you is going this way, okay? In order for these to ever change direction, you need to change their direction in a way that they'll intersect. And I'm pretty sure that's an integration, but I really don't know. You can find an integration point, an intersection point, I should say, between the two directions if we're in a linear plane. So you'd have to find the slope. I'm just kidding. It's not linear. That's why it's a simplification. But everything is, okay, if you're a point on a plane, like in a linear plane, and you're a point on a linear plane because that is the perspective that you're looking at Excuse me. But you're on a plane in some linear fashion in a 2D, you're a point. Okay, imagine that. Imagine, the way I think about it is this way. Imagine the government had a computer that, or Tesla or whatever. Imagine a large entity had a computer with a database, which exists, right? Where all of our geolocations of our phones are dots, okay? So imagine a graph that looks like that, right? You're a point. You're a point. That's what I'm saying. So in that dimension, you're a point. Your phone's a point, but you get it? We're looking for Lana. So we have a tracker on Lana. This is where Lana is on the map. Okay, that's a linear perspective. But in a nonlinear perspective, now there's a third axis. So then now we get not only direction, but velocity. Something like that. I don't know. You get more information is the point. So it's like here we all are sitting thinking that we're just points. Because we're being treated as points. We're being treated as data points, right? I've talked about this extensively on TikTok. We are being treated as data points, especially as consumers, right? And there are people in there, there's no castles anymore. There's no ivory towers really anymore. It's these people. You can imagine, I don't know if you can imagine people, but like human beings with power, because they sit on these data farms that have all of our information that can be bought and sold. And they just sit in their marketing teams and whatever, right? And they're like, okay, what do people want? Let's give them that. And this is how much we're gonna price it. So that way we make money. And it's no longer really a gamble when you have this much data. Like everything you create will make money, right? It's not about being successful. It's not about, creating world peace. It's about making money. And so there are some people who just love to make money and they just want to keep making shit so they can keep making money because they understand that they have the data to know what people want. And if you know what people want, then there's a consumer, right? But there are people out there who have a desire, who have a want, but believe it's impossible. So if you can give them a reason to believe the impossible, that's something worth putting on the market, right? Allowing people to believe the impossible. That's an important skill, right? I would maybe say that I'm providing you the tools to create this skill right now, right? How do we allow ourselves to not only want something, A, and know what that is, B, allow ourselves to want things, okay? Once we've established that, now we can say, how is it impossible? How is it impossible? Just explore that. How is it impossible? How is it impossible? Okay, like I said, I reached a point in my consciousness where I believed and understood that I could marry Billie Eilish. And I genuinely believed it in my whole soul because I was like, you know what? I'm X years older than her. She's already famous, but it's a possibility that once I reach a certain level of fame and notoriety that we will be in the same circles and I could potentially meet her as a friend. And if I potentially met her as a friend because I found myself in the same circles that she found herself in, whether that be because she decided she wanted to come live a normal life and live around me, or because I changed my lifestyle completely so that way I am hanging around in circles around her, right? So I was making this this rationality. It wasn't something I was thinking about at all. It was something I just knew to be true, right? I was like, oh yeah, like that's not, because I was trying to show myself that's not impossible, because at the time my dream was to marry Billie Eilish. Okay, that was my dream. All right, okay. So I was like, oh my God, I want to marry Billie Eilish. Now, do I know Billie Eilish personally? No, I do not. Do I know if I really want to marry Billie Eilish? No, I do not. It's like in the same way I imagine she felt about Justin Bieber. You know what I'm saying? So you have these moments and you're like, in the same way that she felt, okay, let's say that. In the same way she felt about Justin Bieber, you're like, oh, I hope I meet Justin Bieber, right? Well, I don't know. She has like kind of well-known parents, but like, and then being able to be friends with Justin Bieber. That's kind of the vibe that I saw and understood for myself. I was like, if I'm able to, when I'm able to get to the point where I have a certain stature that allows me to co-orbit the same circles that these other human beings are in, then it's possible, right? So this is how I convinced myself that it was possible for me to marry Billie Eilish. Now, I didn't convince myself, like I said, this was just a natural energy exchange that I received. But it was fun. Like it was me using my imagination. It was fun. And nobody around me understood. Like nobody around me understood. Like nobody would play that game with me. People were like, that's impossible, Anna. And I'm like, you guys are no fucking fun. Nobody believes in me. Nobody thinks I'm ever gonna meet Billie Eilish as a friend. Nobody thinks that. And that's like really sad to me because I'm like, why can't I just believe that? Like, why can't I be that kid that is, playing with a cardboard box and you all agree that it's a spaceship and you allow me to be the kid in the cardboard box with a spaceship? You know what I'm saying? Like, these are things I want to ask the people who have said these things to me because I'm like, damn, that really sucks, right? Like, boo. So that's why something like sharing my intense download on the internet would bring that up. Because it's like, I don't know. In a really simplistic term, I don't know if there's a market for what I'm sharing. And it's just like, it comes to the point where I'm like, do I have to build the market? It's like, I don't want a market first. That's not what it's about. But I'm saying in a really simplistic form, the most 2D form, which is that we're points, right? In a consumerist type world. That's why I say market. But I also want to make sure that so earlier, I'm going to wrap up. Earlier, I mentioned how, hold on. Forgot what I mentioned. Because I said I'm going to wrap up. I don't know why I said that. Oh, it's back. So I mentioned how I flipped from metaphor to storytelling to now metaphor. Like there's different dimensionality to my language that allows me to connect with different parts of myself, different parts of past, present, and future, right? And embrace this full-bodied, timeless knowingness that I experience. And some things have to be integrated over time if you are not fully present in the experience because you find yourself in your head or your heart or whatever. So in the oscillation of the language, I'm not sure. So when I was filming this download, I just had this overwhelming feeling. And I remember I even said in there, like, why do I feel like I'm giving a collective broadcast? Like it felt like whatever I was saying was very important. It felt like whatever I was saying should be broadcast to everyone. And it was very important. But to me, it didn't make much sense. It did, but it also didn't. And everybody I told thought I was absolutely batshit and like really fought me on a lot of it, And like, I was like, why can't you allow your imagination to experience what I'm experiencing? Like, are you scared of the alternatives? Why? Like the subconscious is so scared of anything that threatens its existence, right? So for those reasons, when I watch it, because I felt like I needed to edit out the personal anecdotes, but now I'm recognizing that those personal anecdotes were metaphorical for myself. But the parts that are meant to be shared can still be shared without those personal experiences. So it's not the authentic full video, but I don't think the authentic full video was meant for everyone. The whole authentic full video was made for me. And this is something that I filmed in my past, and I edit all my past videos because of that reason. Because when I talk now, I am talking from a higher consciousness space, so I don't fear saying anything about anybody in my personal life, because that's not what this is about. And if it is about that, I always just refer to anybody outside of myself as like a human being with certain qualities, or my partner. So with that being said, my old videos that I repurpose, I edit the parts where I am still the fragments basically to my consciousness. Yeah. So it's really, it's cool to see myself grow in that way, for sure. Okay. I'm seeing the time. It's been a long one, and I appreciate your time spent here. 2025 is going to be a very, 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 very interesting year for us all. And I say that with like the utmost knowingness in my heart. It is just going to be an extremely interesting year. It's going to be a year that is about where you pay your attention. You pay with your attention. Okay, so where are you paying your attention? Where are you focusing? What nuances are you amplifying? What things are you exploring? What are you seeking? What are you focusing on? Because that is what you will create more of. And what's happening is a lot of the structures and a lot of the crumblings that is happening around the world are because people are paying less attention to these things. People are paying less attention to war, so war cannot continue to exist, right? I understand there's wars going on, but I'm talking about how like everybody just decided back in the day that war was good. And like there was like no debate. Like it was like, yep, let's go. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. You know? But then over time we paid less attention to war, so there was less focus on war, okay? And less war created, right? More peace. So that's kind of my strategy for myself through 2025. Before, I was scared of my imagination because nobody in the world was able to reflect back at me what I was saying. But now I have created a insurmountable support system that is very robust in its reflections. I have a technological reflection, I have a personal reflection, I have an authoritarian reflection, I have a like kind of teacher reflection, I have a dog reflection, I have friendly all of these reflections, and I have the, you know, the people that, the random strangers on the internet, on TikTok, that like just thousands of people randomly watching me one day, all of those people are reflections. And then the 430 people that are here right now on this YouTube channel, subscribed, there's all these different reflections. And before, I lacked any reflection at all. It was simply rejection. Nobody was reflecting me because I was not found in any of the people around me in the ways that I needed to be. So there was no, I guess the way to say it is there was no one that matched my imaginative play, right? I was alone in my imaginative playroom. And that's really isolating, and it can also give you the experience of going to the mental hospital, right? Because you're in your imaginative playroom by yourself. What does that sound like? Yeah, sounds like you're going crazy, right? Like, oh my God, she doesn't get we're here. No, it's like, no, I get we're here, right? I get we're here and I get we're doing this. I'm trying to let you know that it doesn't have to be like this. And you are so fucking brainwashed that you aren't even willing to think of anything that I have to say as of value because you've decided that the things that I say are crazy. Because your book and your coat tell you that that's what you should be doing in this particular context. But in a different context, actually, what I'm saying would have a lot of value to a lot of people. So what am I doing? I'm putting myself in a different context in 2025. So allow yourself to be put in different contexts. Allow yourself to challenge yourself and ask yourself, what do I want? Don't be afraid of that. And also for 2025, don't put so much pressure on yourself to have a goal or a plan or a resolution, right? It's good to always seek or focus on resolve, right? Like, and a resolution is resolve. So what is it that you want to resolve in 2025? It could be your acne, okay? It could be your energy levels. It could be your people-pleasing tendencies. Just think of a theme of something that you want to focus on. It doesn't have to be, I am going to lose 35 pounds by the end of the year. That is not necessarily helpful to the full self. It is maybe helpful to the body to understand that goal, but the full self isn't hearing that. So that's why for when you're thinking ahead into 2025, and this is why I said, this is the theme. I said interesting for the Gen Pop and for the world. It's just going to be a really interesting year. It's going to be a bunch of shit we've never seen before happening so fucking fast. Boom, 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 boom. New thing. Like, it's going to be like what we've seen on the micro level on a macro level. Like trends are going to cycle so fast. We're going to realize the waste. All these things are going to happen so fast. And that's going to happen on a collective level. But on a personal level for myself, the theme I was thinking of from all of my mood board experiences, and I posted it on TikTok stories. If you follow me there, you can see that. But I recognize it's not personal. So maybe I'll do a share one day. But the theme is emergence, right? So I talked earlier about this idea of a butterfly trying to hatch prematurely, and then their wings don't work, and they're like, what the fuck, my wings don't work? But what if, right? What if the butterfly goes back into the cocoon, takes more time, relaxes, and then emerges, right? So I'm in my emergent discovery era in 2025. Excuse me, like, it's going to be so fun, emerging, interesting, very collective, a lot of collective energy. And also I'm really leaning into this idea of amplification, right? Like I want to be an amplifier, the amplifier, perhaps, you know? Like I was like, I want to be like, if I were like an MMA fighter, I'd be like the amp, because I am an authentic mastery production, right? Like some people could say that what I'm doing is very produced. Like it's produced through my vocal cords, woohoo, right? But it's authentic mastery practice for me. And so that's what this is. For now, I don't know. It's like when I tried to create a podcast and I was like, let's put parameters around what I'm doing. And it just doesn't go well. Like I'm just a girl that doesn't like to be boxed in, you know? I mean, look what I'm wearing. Do I look like I want to be boxed in? No. No, honey. All right. 51 minutes. I hope you enjoyed the 51 minutes in the same way that I did. Well, not necessarily in the same way that I did, but perhaps you enjoyed it in your own way. Yeah. I hope you really made this video your own. All right. Happy 2025. Cheers to the new year. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, all right, what are we working with? See you next time.